If there's one thing more disturbing than a violent end, it's the deceased individual having no identity. Dubbed Jane or John Doe, these cases can be particularly difficult to solve due to the fact that detectives often have very little information to work from. In recent years, we have seen a rise in identifications thanks to genealogy databases and organizations like the DNA Doe Project, but still, hundreds of individuals go nameless. In today's episode, we'll be examining 4 chilling cases of Jane and John Does who have remained unidentified for decades. But first, I'd like to thank Surfshark VPN for sponsoring today's episode. The internet is an immensely important tool for us at Cold Case Detective, where the majority of our research takes place. It provides us with access to news and information, a place to share all of our documents and data, and various streaming platforms to find valuable wisdom on the topics we are covering. The problem is, sometimes that critical documentary isn't available in the country we're located, and public Wi-Fi leaves us concerned about sharing files across easily accessible servers. Luckily, with Surfshark VPN, those concerns are completely solved. Surfshark VPN is an unparalleled virtual private network with unbelievably protective perks and easy-to-navigate security features meant to mask your online activity. All of your internet browsing, including where you're doing it from, is withheld via military-grade encryption to prevent people from snooping in. This allows you to share files safely, access your bank accounts, and feel confident wherever you are, even when using shared Wi-Fi. Surfshark VPN also allows you to change your location in real time to one of many servers found all over the globe. This means that if a certain film or documentary we need for research is unavailable in our country, we can simply travel to a different part of the world via Surfshark and access that media in a matter of seconds. It's a seamless process with zero risk attached. Surfshark VPN also includes a no-strings-attached, no-logs policy, meaning your data will never be collected or sold no matter what. You can also enjoy the peace of mind of their cookie pop-up blocker and clean web initiative, where millions of phishing scams and malicious websites are automatically blocked at your convenience. Sign up for Surfshark VPN using the link in the description below and enter promo code COLDCASE for 83% off and an extra 3 months for free. The internet is an unpredictable place. Use the tools at your disposal to make it secure. Girl from the Maine. At 2:50 p.m. on July 31st, 2001, a passerby noticed something in the Main River in Nit, Germany. Upon closer inspection, it was found to be the body of a teenage girl, just 15 or 16 years old. She was wrapped up in a leopard print duvet cover and a terry cloth sheet. Jane Doe, known best as the Girl from the Maine, had suffered abuse in the years leading up to her demise, but had never been seen by a doctor. Her arms were malformed because fractures had healed without the proper treatment. She bore numerous long scars on her legs, torso, and forehead, and had endured cigarette burns all over her body, as evidenced by the scarring left behind. She also had a cauliflower ear, which was the result of injury. Jane Doe appeared a few years younger than her estimated age, with her body being in the stage of puberty that was more typical in a 13-year-old, rather than that of a 15 or 16-year-old. She is described as being white, with dark brown hair that was 12 inches long, and she stood at 5'2" and weighed only 85 pounds. She also had both her ears pierced, as well as her nose, and was found with no clothing or possessions. Jane Doe did not appear to have received dental care during her lifetime, as her teeth were in very poor condition, although she did still have all of them. Her wisdom teeth had not emerged at the time of her death. While her face was still considered recognizable, her eye color could not be determined. Her profile on the German police website, bka.d, notes that she was not a virgin, It's unclear how this was determined. Jane Doe showed no signs of pregnancy or genital injury. 2 scarf or belt-like items, known as nalas, had been used to bind the body in the duvet cover, causing detectives to consider the idea that Jane Doe was possibly from the Pakistan-Afghanistan border area and was living in the Frankfurt-Rhine-Main area. Nalas were distributed in Afghanistani, Pakistani, and North Indian places of worship and youth centers throughout Germany at the time. Jane Doe specifically had 1 white nala and 1 white and purple nala. Investigators followed this lead, distributing flyers with Jane Doe's description on them and tracing young women from these countries who'd spent time living in Germany. But still, the young girl was never identified. Detectives have noted that it's possible she entered Germany unofficially and believe she may have worked in a diplomat's home as a maid or servant, and thanks to diplomatic immunity, this lead has never been fully explored, as it's so difficult to investigate. It is believed that Jane Doe was in the water for 12 to 14 hours before her discovery, and that she had likely been killed around 3 days before this. Her cause of death was blunt force trauma, after which 2 fractured ribs injured her lungs and spleen. Her body was tied up and weighted down with a parasol stand and tossed into the river. The parasol stand was determined to have been manufactured by the Dutch company ELFE, with 10,000 units per year being sold to wholesalers and hardware stores throughout Europe. Jane Doe's burial was funded by investigators who donated money to it. Her identity is still unknown. There is a €10,000 reward for anyone with information leading to the identification of the perpetrator or perpetrators. If you have any information about Jane Doe's identity or her killer, you can contact the Frankfurt police at 49-069-755-51108 or the Federal Criminal Police Office at 49-061-155-13101. Perry County Jane Doe, 1979. On the morning of June 20th, 1979, a stonemason out walking the Juanita River near Watts Township in Perry County, Pennsylvania, stumbled across mostly skeletal human remains dumped on an embankment between the water and the eastbound lanes of Route 22 and 322. The victim's time of death was estimated to be as far back as the autumn of 1978, but could have been just several months before the remains were discovered. A thorough examination of the body revealed that the individual was a white woman between the ages of 15 and 30 at the time of her death, although she could have been as old as 38. She had straight or possibly curly shoulder-length blonde or light brown hair, and stood between 5'2" and 5'9", with her weight estimated to be between 105 and 125 pounds, according to some sources, although the FBI states her weight as 170 pounds. At some point during her lifetime, Jane Doe was receiving dental care. A black molar had been removed approximately 4 or 5 years before her death, while one wisdom tooth had not yet broken through. She had several fillings, which were made of silver. Shortly before her death, Jane Doe's 9th rib had suffered a fracture, but had recently healed. While her cause of death has never been determined, police believe foul play is involved. In later years, isotope testing was performed on Jane Doe's remains, which suggested she'd spent much of her life in the Midwestern area of the US, or possibly southern Canada, near the Great Lakes. She is not believed to have been originally from Pennsylvania, and experts believe she'd been in the southwestern part of the US before she arrived here. She was dubbed the Perry County Jane Doe, but is sometimes known as the girl with the turquoise jewelry, due to her personal belongings, which included several distinguishing pieces of jewelry. Jane Doe was found wearing 2 sterling silver rings with turquoise stones, one of which also contained onyx pieces that are believed to have originated in the Southwest. Jane Doe also wore a thick metal Avon brand chain bracelet on her right arm, as well as a turquoise necklace, a sterling silver and black onyx ring, and teardrop-shaped turquoise earrings. Investigators suspected that because of her jewelry, she may have had ties to Arizona, New Mexico, or a similar state. As for Jane Doe's clothing, she wore a tan jacket, white boots with silver buckles, blue trousers, and red and white argyle socks, sometimes described as red and grey or red and green. The trousers are described as having been made from knitted wool containing strands of red thread. She was also wearing a white or tan A-cup bra, a white blouse, which is described as being made of lace or lace-like material, and a blue tank top. Her case was reopened in 2008, where her body was exhumed and her DNA and dental records taken and put on file. Due to the state of decomposition at the time of her discovery, her fingerprints were never taken. Over the years, over 60 individuals have been ruled out as being the Perry County Jane Doe, and artist renderings of her were released in 2009, 2013, and 2018, but Jane Doe continues to remain unidentified. She is the only Jane Doe of Perry County, and her killer is still on the loose. If you have any information about the death or identity of the Perry County Jane Doe, you can contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov, or alternatively, you can call the Pennsylvania Crime Stoppers at 866-210-8477. The Bolney Torso. On October 11th, 1991, a 62-year-old man was walking home from Cuckfield to Burgess Hill in West Sussex, England, when he made a shocking discovery. As he walked along Broxmead Lane, he diverted through a field and among the trees found a bloody torso rolled up in a piece of carpet. He immediately made his way to the nearest police station and alerted the authorities to the gruesome find. He later stated that he was so disturbed by what he found, he had trouble sleeping for months afterwards. The victim, known simply as the Bolney Torso, was initially found to be a white male in his 60s, although the second examination in 2009 revealed he was actually in his mid to late 30s at the time of death. His head and hands had been removed, with none of them having been recovered in the 3 decades since his torso was found. One arm was severed 6 inches below the elbow, while the other was severed 2 inches below the elbow. This is believed to have been done in order to remove an identifying tattoo, and it was determined that his head and limbs were removed either using an axe or a bolt cutter. Few other details of the victim are available, but police noted that he was circumcised, had a small star-shaped mole on his right thigh, and had a protruding belly. He also wore turned-up trousers from Foster, a blue shirt with a distinctive motif on the pocket. It came to light in 2010 that the body had been dressed after death and that the garments likely belonged to someone else. His height is estimated to be between 5'6" and 5'8", and he had a strongly built upper body. During the initial investigation, 60 officers were employed to work on the case, and detectives searched the files of over 100 missing men looking for a match. Public appeals brought in no useful leads. Then, a few months later in December, the authorities were contacted by a local estate agent who had found one of their rented properties abandoned. The large rented house was located on Copyhold Lane in Cuckfield, around 1.5 miles from where the body had been found. Notably, when the police searched the property, they discovered a copy of Penthouse magazine, a men's pornographic magazine which contained an article about dismembering bodies. Numbers were scrawled on the pages. The property had been rented in September of 1991 by German-born Gunther Joseph Nieper and Cornelia Tussell, who paid 6 months' rent in advance. They left the home around October 9th that same year. At the time of rental, Nieper was using the name Dr. Matthias Hermann and was actually being sought in both Germany and Ireland on suspicion of business fraud, along with 3 other Germans. He was arrested in Spain in June of 1992, but denied being involved in the murder of John Doe, claiming he bought the magazine so he could get the numbers for escorts and read an article about Land Rovers which piqued his interest. The police were unable to find evidence connecting Hermann to the case, and in 1994, they interviewed another unnamed man in Germany who'd visited the property, although this lead appears to have gone nowhere. In 1994, John Doe was buried in Weston Road Cemetery in Haywards Heath. 15 years later, his remains were exhumed as investigators hoped new forensic advances would be able to provide clues and evidence that wasn't previously available. Examining a femur, rib bone, and toenails, experts concluded that John Doe had originally come from an area of southern Germany, or the surrounding countries, and had spent the last year of his life in the UK or the French-German border. Armed with these new facts, detectives made a plea for information on German TV, and in the UK, the case was featured on BBC's Crime Watch programme. As a result of the appeals, investigators were given several names for John Doe, but none were a true match. There have been no new leads in recent years, and John Doe's case is currently not active. If you have any information about his death or identity, you can call Crime Stoppers UK at 0800 555 111. Ventura County Jane Doe, 1980. On July 18th, 1980, at 12:40 p.m., the body of a pregnant young woman was found just hours after her death in a school car park at 100 Lakeview Canyon Road in Westlake, Ventura County, California. She was discovered by a Westlake High School employee and had been raped, strangled, and stabbed to death, although evidence suggested that she had been killed elsewhere and the school was simply the dumping ground. In 2015, DNA from under Jane Doe's fingernails linked her to a convicted rapist named Wilson Schwest, who was charged and convicted of her murder in 2018. Schwest is also responsible for the death of a Native American woman named Shirley Soucy, who was an unidentified victim until 2021. Jane Doe's killer claimed to be unaware of her identity and said he did not know her prior to the murder. They had been murdered just days apart, but for Jane Doe, that wasn't the end of her mystery. An examination of Jane Doe revealed her to be of mixed race. She was Native American and Hispanic, with small amounts of sub-Saharan African and Asian ancestry. She was also estimated to be between the ages of 15 and 30, weighed between 110 to 115 pounds, and stood at around 5'1" to 5'3". She had brown eyes, black shoulder-length hair with bleach blonde ends, thick mascara on her eyelashes, and her natural eyebrows were shaved, with Jane Doe penciling them on about 1/4 of an inch above her natural brows. Further details about Jane Doe include that she was 4 to 5 months pregnant with a boy at the time of her death, and an episiotomy scar suggested this wasn't her first pregnancy. She wore red nail polish on her fingers and toes, and had a mole on the back of her left hand, below the index finger, and had other birthmarks visible on her face. There was a scar on her right buttock, small ovoid scarring on her left knee, and 2 vaccination scars on her upper left arm. She had received extensive dental work during her lifetime and had pierced ears. At the time of her murder, she was wearing a white pullover short-sleeve top, a black bra, white underwear, and red corduroy trousers. Black open-toed, high-heeled shoes were found near the body. During the investigation, authorities suspected the victim, who was dubbed the Ventura County Jane Doe, was taken from Kern or Ventura counties or the San Fernando Valley, and theorized she'd been driven a great distance to the dump site. It has also been noted that she may have been hitchhiking in California, although it's unclear where this idea came from. In recent years, the DNA Doe Project has taken on Jane Doe's case and discovered far distant cousins in various regions of the US as well as Central America. On their website, the organization has noted the difficulties of attempting to track the movements of individuals migrating from Mexico to the US, and her distant cousins are unfamiliar with her. For further reading on Jane Doe's family history, as well as names and locations that could be relevant to the case, you can visit her DNA Doe Project page, which we will link in the description below. The most recent update in Jane Doe's case came in 2021, when the father of her baby was finally tracked down. He is a Honduran immigrant who, at the time of her murder, lived in the Koreatown district of Los Angeles. While he is in contact with authorities, he has not been able to provide Jane Doe's name. If you have any information about the identity of the Ventura County Jane Doe, you can contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 800-843-5678. Or alternatively, you can call the Ventura County Sheriff's Office on 805-654-9511. And there you have the facts. Please leave a comment down below with your own thoughts and speculations, and remember to like this video and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay alert, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.